You're good, Doug.
All right. It is May the 4th and 5:45, and I'm going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Lang, Bubb, Harris, Blake, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to apply for funding for the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice assistance under the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Program.
Steve Baum to speak to that.
Go ahead, Steve.
This is a standard bulletproof vest partnership. There will be a certain amount of money made available. The feds will reimburse us half of what we spend for bulletproof vests for the police department.
I'll offer a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Bubb, second by Lang. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by your thumbs up. All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the total amount of $60,074. This is for the intra-government payment.
Okay, that would be for, those are two together there. This is for our fees. Yeah, this is for the fees for our loan for the 4th Street project. The total amount is going to be $90,000.47. And so that's to pay a Ohio Water Development Authority for that's the loan fees for the project. So the loans are approved. We have the money, and we just need to pay them their fees.
Okay.
I'll offer a motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Bubb. Who was the second by?
Harris.
Second by Harris. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $27,500 paying out for the retirement of firefighter Rex Flowers.
Yeah, Steve Baum to speak to that. This is a standard retirement payout, sick comp vacation. Rex Flowers is gonna leave us and enjoy retirement.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Bubb, second by Lang. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $240.
Yes, this is a refund for, well, Noxalone, Narcan, be the common name for it. We want this to be put back into the firefighters account.
Motion.
Motion by Bubb,
Second.
second by Lang. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $4,464.
Hey Doug, I'll take that. This is Dave Rhodes. This is a refund from American Legal Publishing. It was an overcharge on a bill.
Okay.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Lang. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by a thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And I don't have a form for this one. Next item on the agenda, it looks like a request for appropriation in the amount of $18,777.
Doug, I'll speak to this. A couple meetings back, we created a position in the Parks Department in a full-time position, and I'm beginning to fund that position. I don't plan to hire anybody till at least till at least July 1st. We do have it out for bid. These dollars are coming from salaries of an employee who left where we didn't use the money that's already in the salaries, and part temporary service dollars.
Okay.
David, I have a quick question, then I'll offer a motion.
Go ahead.
David, why July with grass season now? Is there a reason why? Are we just having more part-time help up there now?
We've got part-time help there. The individual that we'll probably end up hiring is currently working part-time for us now. Why July? I just wanted to start the benefits mid.
Thank you. I'll offer a motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Lang. Any further questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Now I need a motion for a disappropriation for the same amount coming from temporary services.
I'll offer a motion.
Motion by Bub,
Second.
second by Lang. Any questions and or discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, thumbs, oh yeah, Jeremy,
I'm sorry, I couldn't get to my mute real quick.
you're fine.
David, I'm just curious, at what point would we consider, considering the climate that we're in, what point would we consider a hiring freeze? Just in case we need to reserve dollars and knowing that revenues may be reduced later on in the year?
That's a fair question, Jeremy. Currently, as positions come available now, we're not filling as quickly as what we used to. An example of that would be Mike Buskirk left, and I'm filling in as an interim HR director. So there's some savings there. There's a spot in the police department that Steve could speak to that they're not going to fill. So we're currently doing that. And this position here is needed in the Parks Department. And that's why I moved forward with asking to fund it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. That's already been on there.
Councilman Marmee,
Yes,
do you have legislation for a traffic grant?
that's what the next thing is. I'm just
Okay,
getting
thank
there
you.
on the
Sorry.
agenda. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Public Service for federal fiscal year 2021 Ohio Traffic Safety Grants Program, Selective Traffic Enforcement Programs, STEP, and the Impaired Driving Enforcement Program, IDEP. So go ahead, Director Baum.
Yes, sir. This is our yearly traffic grant program. It's a reimbursement of overtime money spent. I asked Barb, I believe the number's up to $26,000. I don't know that we'll use that many. The government sets aside certain days, weekends, holidays that they want certain things done. There's a week for click it or ticket, DUI checkpoints and whatnot on certain holidays.
Very good. Any questions for Director Baum? Entertain a motion.
I'll offer a motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Lang. Any further questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. And with that, the Finance Committee meeting stands adjourned. Next up is what?
Be service.
Service.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. All right, we'll call the service committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Harris, Barker, Blake, and Bub. Up first, we'll consider resolution number 20-30, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and lease certain real estate now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that such property is no longer needed for any municipal purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Rhodes, I'll speak to this. This is the old crime lab located on Cherry Valley Road there. It's the building that's connected to the county morgue. There's about 5 offices in there and that I think we could rent to a business. And I'm just kind of looking for the authorization to do that. The back part of the building, we are using part of that for storage for the clerk's office. And anybody else who needs storage, we can run them out there also.
Great. Any questions?
I'll offer a motion.
We have a motion by Bub,
Second.
second by Barker. Were there any questions from the committee or others? Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by a thumbs up. That motion passes with a 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next, we'll consider resolution number 20-17, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances and resolution as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances, providing for the adoption of new matter in the United and Revised Codified Ordinances, repealing ordinances and resolutions in the conflict therewith, and declaring an emergency. I'm assuming Mr. Sassen will speak to this one.
Yeah, I think I should speak to it. It's our standard semi-annual update of our printed ordinances. The reason for the emergency is publication deadlines that we have to meet, but it's every 6-month thing we have to do.
Okay, any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Bub,
Second.
second by Harris. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by thumbs up. All opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Sassen. Let's see, up next will be resolution number 20-36, a resolution enacted by the City of Newark of Licking County, Ohio, hereinafter referred to as the Local Public Agency, LPA, in the matter of the state described project construction of a roundabout and related work at intersection of State Route 13, also known as 4th Street, and County Road 132, also known as West Main Street, within the city of Newark. Who would like to speak to putting a roundabout at 4th and Main?
Yeah, it's Brian Moorhead here. I'll speak to that. So this is standard preliminary legislation that comes from ODOT. And we have applied to ODOT for some safety funding to improve that intersection. And the choice of the infrastructure is a roundabout there at 4th and Main. So this will allow us to move forward and keep the project on ODOT's books, accept the funding, and we're currently in the design phase of it. And over the course of the next 6 months or so, we'll have a little more detail on what it's going to look like and what the overall cost of it will be. The safety funding is a maximum of $717,000 with this legislation. Any other questions? I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Brian, you said the choice was a roundabout. Can I ask who made that choice? And if that was for safety reasons, how did they come about that decision?
Yeah, prior to the choice, ODOT funded a safety study there. ODOT had a consultant on board, worked with the city, looked at all the traffic counts, accident history, and so forth, came up with a list of different treatments that could be done there. But the best and the most effective way to improve safety there was with the construction of a roundabout.
All right. Any other further questions?
Mr. Chair.
Blake?
Brian, is there is the sort of the picture of what it's going to look like? Was that on a website for the whole 4th Street project? Was that previously released from your office, or?
Just a very, it wasn't, it was something that was kind of generically drawn back on when we were doing the 4th Street public info meetings. So it's not totally accurate.
Will this roundabout be sufficient for semis to go through and things, larger traffic?
Yeah, absolutely, because we need to accommodate the traffic on the state route for sure.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Do I hear a motion?
I'd offer a motion.
Second.
Motion by Barker, seconded by Bub. Seeing no further questions, all in favor signify by thumbs up. All opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you all.
That concludes our service committee meeting for the night. I believe up next will be safety committee. Yeah, up next will be safety committee. Thank you all.
Mark frozen.
I think so. I'm shooting him a message.
Just realized that I thought he was just staring at us and was
Oh.
really, really still.
Yeah. Mark, are you there?
Never know.
Yes. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
You're a little garbled.
Okay. if we could, I had asked both the fire chief and police chief to be here this evening to give an update as far as how their teams are protecting the community as their teams continue to provide service both fire and police. So if we could have Chief Connor start this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what the fire has been doing during this time.
Can everybody hear me better? Mark, your microphone was kind of messed up. That's all right. I think what he was trying to tell you is he asked Chief Connell and I to comment on how our organizations, how the fire department and the police department's handling the COVID response. I've done multiple ones of these. It's getting to be my everyday at the moment, but I'll share with you some brief things and open it up for questions if anyone has any. But the fire department life has changed. The normal is now not normal. We went into protect mode for all of our membership on the fire department, just given the unknown. So we're very closely watching Governor DeWine and Amy Acton's reports each day as they come out with information and trying to comply with any regulations moving forward. So we'll start off with supplies, as everyone has probably started watching the news that public safety nationwide was having issues getting supplies. Originally, we had about a 5-week supply of masks, glasses, gloves, Tyvek suits. And since then, we got down to about a 2.5 to 3 week supply before we finally got some additional resources available to us. Everyone has their own N95 mask, and also we have purchased 30 N100 masks, which are the masks that have the canister filters on the side. Each position on each apparatus has that, and I bought their own canisters, which are interchangeable. We also purchased ozone machines for each of the fire stations, which is a device that you put into a space, and it sanitizes everything in that space. So it helps. It's just an additional tool besides wiping things down with Clorox wipes and so forth. At this point, we've spent around $12,000 on the COVID response with our supplies, cleaning supplies, and additional supplies that we've purchased to make sure that we have a safe environment to work on. I put out an order very quickly to lock down the stations. We're not conducting any inspections right now. Well, they're at a minimum. Our inspectors are in vacant structures right now and businesses that are not open to avoid the social distancing. But we have no tours going on right now, and members of the public are not allowed inside the building. Only mission critical people. I mentioned earlier today on another webinar that was the monitor, the heart monitor repair gentleman came in and updated our monitors, and those types of mission critical things are still happening, but we're giving them a safe place to work within the fire station. We did take one of our backup paramedic units and made it a COVID response vehicle. So anytime we are dispatched on a run that sounds like it might be a potential COVID patient, it has been stripped down. It has a barrier between the patient compartment and the passenger compartment where the driver would sit. And we transport potential COVID patients there. That way, we're not taking any of our first response vehicles out of service in order to decontaminate them. Run interactions are really different right now, very insensitive, just because we're limiting our interaction with people on runs. So hypothetically, someone has chest pain. We're standing on the front porch, one person, the other remaining crew member or crew members will stand off on the sidewalk and we'll ask questions. Do you have a fever? You have any a headache, nausea? We try to determine exactly if this patient is a COVID patient or not. We have been working with Licking County Regional Communications Center, and they have been giving us the ability to add addresses as we receive positive COVID people within our city limits. We add those to the CAD system. So when we're dispatched, it red flags the run and does alert our responders that there is an actual COVID patient living there. Right now, as we speak, we've probably been through about 15 addresses We're down to, I think today it was 4 or 5 that we're watching right now that have a person that still is working through a positive COVID test. So if we get dispatched there, we'll be alerted to that. Quarantine locations, we've had 2 of our members quarantined. And it turns out that that was back when we weren't getting test results within 10 to 14 days. They ended up having a negative test, the patient that they had transported and were exposed to. But since then, Licking Memorial Hospital's been a great partner in the community with us. We worked through some problems with sharing medical information. At the beginning, they were not sharing with us if somebody was testing positive that we had transported to the hospital. But since then, Governor DeWine in his office has pushed down through Amy Acton an order that says we can share limited information on a person that has a potential COVID or COVID positive test. And that is immediately shared to the responding fire department and the health department. Chad Brown and myself have talked almost daily through text messaging and phone calls, just making sure that we're protecting our first responders if there's a potential positive COVID person. If we do have somebody that needs quarantined, we have multiple people on our departments that have immunosuppressed family members living at home. They don't want to go home if they've been exposed. We have the Doubletree downtown has offered some space for quarantine. But even better than that, Denison University, we've reached out and formed a relationship with Denison. They've been wonderful. They have up to 40 units, with 20 of them having kitchens and their own bathrooms, which we can utilize in the event that we need to quarantine. Laurel Kennedy was a contact there, and she's been wonderful. She's also working with Granville Fire in making that happen. So we do have a plan B for some of our people that don't know what to do if they need quarantine. Rob Montagnes reached out on a weekend ago and said that Licking Memorial Hospital had received some antibody testing kits, and wanted to know if we wanted to test the fire department. Absolutely, we did. And May 7th, we'll have all of our fire department members tested for antibodies. And I also got Newark Police, talked to Chief Connell, and we're going to have the police tested on the 15th. And that'll just give us, it's a tool just to let us know what we're doing moving forward, who may have been exposed and already has the antibodies in their system. Financially, there may be an impact on transports. This is not just Newark, this is nationwide. EMS calls are down. And if you measure the last two, or March and April of 2019 and March and April of 2020, we show a 20% reduction in transports. I don't think that's any different than anyone else in first responder world is dealing with right now. So that is going to impact the EMS revenue that we do have coming in these 2 months. However, I am seeing an uptick in some runs here recently where some of the word is coming to the end of the lockdown. We are getting more runs daily, but it's just not where we normally are to the 35 or 40 calls a day. We're down to 20, 25 calls a day. Those 25 calls are more stressful on our membership though, because everyone thinks they have the COVID-19, but our response there, no one wants to go to the hospital. They want us to check them out and advise them to stay home. Doctors do not want to send people to the hospital unless you have a pre-existing condition such as diabetes, cardiac issues, respiratory issues like CHF, COPD, or you're immunosuppressed. So somebody that's on chemotherapy with cancer, just as an example. Those people are high risk. They really don't only want the people in the hospital that are having severe respiratory difficulty or chest pains and those types of things. Just a common cold or the flu, call your doctor is what they're advising. So we're working through our medical direction. Many of you may or may not know our medical direction in Newark comes from Ohio State University. And Dr. Ashley Larimore writes our protocol, and we operate under her umbrella. So we have some resources as far as this COVID response coming to us through email every day and phone calls with her, very in line with Ohio State University Medical Center. So anyway, the numbers are down. We are just trying to keep everybody safe. We're working together with the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, to get the best guidance that we can moving forward. And day to day right now slowed down a little bit for information. So the information still, are we protecting ourselves, locking down? Right now we're still locked down. But I try to put that in a very quick summary for each of you. At this time, if anyone has any questions of something I didn't cover, feel free to ask. Jeremy?
Yes, Jeremy.
Well, first I want to thank thank you, Mark, for having both the chiefs in tonight. I think it's important as they give us a briefing and update that they're also updating the community. So I appreciate you bringing them in tonight to talk to us. Chief, we were on the Kiwanis meeting earlier today, and you talked about sort of the experiences that you're having while the run call is down. And I'm just wanting to share with the whole other members of council, during this time, people are dealing with loss of wages, loss of jobs, loss of, just the severity of the health crisis. People's money, people's health are their top two priorities. And many times people go to street drugs and dealing with drug addiction and overdoses in our community. And I just wanted you to share with the rest of the members of council about what's happening with people with the overdose numbers that you're seeing. I think earlier you said it was about a 5%, just a slight over the norm. Is that what was that a fair statement?
Yeah. The overdose runs this past weekend we had quite a few, and that's consistent with the Columbus news that weekend as well. Columbus Fire and the surrounding townships and cities were having an uptick in overdoses this past weekend. It shows you that there's a certain batch of drugs that are coming through the communities, and there is some software out there and some communications setups that we use to try to track that, but we can't stop it. So we do have weekends periodically where we have a significant uptick in overdose calls. A 20 to 30-year-old unresponsive overdose, and that goes back to suicide. We've had a higher uptick of suicide during this time with COVID response. After our Kiwanis meeting today, Jeremy, I was visiting a few fire stations, and I went out to see our retired member, Rex Flowers, Lieutenant Flowers, leave. He left at 4 o'clock today, retired, and I wanted to wish him well. But the crew out at Station 3 in the West End wanted to make sure that I was aware that they had quite a few overdose calls over the weekend and a few suicides. And usually we see suicides in Newark during the holidays quite a bit. That's common throughout my career. But the overdose situation is this past weekend was something that we're not normally seeing. What is it attributed to? I'm not sure, besides just a bad batch of illegal drugs coming through our city. And then they're gone. As fast as they're here, they're gone, and it seems to get back to normal. I'm sure the Newark Police Department, Chief Connell, could comment on that. They see it just as much as we do. But it's the mental health situation is impacted. I watched a few educational documentaries regarding the COVID and mental health, and we're trying to focus on our own mental health. Some of our own membership is struggling through all of this with the stress of their family and the finances at home versus coming to work and then dealing with potentially being exposed to COVID-19. So we're trying to make sure we're taking care of them on a mental health level, as well as physically with our PPE, our personal protective equipment that we provide them each day. But I really don't have an answer as to why exactly that happens, but it just seems to happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chief Connor. Chief Connell, could you give us some insight into how the police department is protecting the community during this COVID-19 and the service that you provided?
Well, first, let me make sure, is this working? Can you hear me? Okay, this is my first Zoom meeting ever, so I'm brand new to this. I could just about say ditto to a lot of the things that Pat was talking about. Latest thing he talked about was the overdoses and the suicides, suicidal folks. I think it's a big circle. We're looking at mental health things. We're looking at addiction. There's been some stoppage of some of that, the way traditionally people who are in recovery or were being treated for mental health issues. That's kind of had a bit of a kink in it lately. So I think we would see an impact on that. Clearly, that's going to make things a little more tough for us because we do have more calls. And I just found out today that our stats were up over the past week or so. So they're coinciding. Obviously, Newark Fire runs on a overdose or a suicidal subject. So does the police department. So our numbers would go up together. Big thanks to LMH and Pat for getting the testing set up. We're pretty excited about that. I think a lot of our people will take advantage of that on the 15th. Newark Fire is also going to host that in one of their equipment bays. So that'll make it nice. We'll be able to do it safely and correctly. For us, well, I got input from my deputy chiefs earlier today, and they did want me to remind you that this is the best police department in Ohio, just so you're aware of that. But some of the things that we've been dealing with early on in this, the supplies, the PPE things, it's something that we don't normally use. So we were a little behind the curve on that. I think we're starting to get caught up. I know the Central Ohio Drug Enforcement Task Force made a delivery today of some things. And we luckily haven't spent a lot of money on things because we've had other agencies providing them for us. Code provided them to agencies in Licking County that needed them, and the other agencies that they work with in the other counties. So very thankful for that. I won't go into specifics about some of our employees who are quarantined because that's a tactical response thing. So we don't ever want to talk about the numbers that we're down or how many employees are off. So there has been a couple of issues. So I'll just leave it at that. One thing that's I think from the command staff level we've struggled with is dealing with directives for our employees, because we're trying to juggle the federal response and the directives they put out, the advices they put out. Then we have the states, then we have Licking counties. So we're attempting to juggle all of those and come up with directives for our folks that mirror all of those. I know that we were working on one today as far as responses to overdoses and what level of protective gear we put on, how we have Newark Fire sometimes go in first. We have to evaluate if there's a crime scene. So we've been working on that. We've put out a couple of other personnel directives that we've talked to City Hall about. We've gotten input. Our department's a little different than some of the other departments in the city, so we kind of do our thing, but we consult with City Hall. Our schedules have changed for a lot of folks, and if you'd have told me a month ago that I could work from home several days a week, I'd have thought that was a great thing. It's really not. It's you lose some of that communication. I'm constantly, we're having texting with the command staff, with some of our sergeants on things. So we're keeping updated. It's just not the same as when you do it in person. A lot of our, obviously we've closed down our ride along programs. Like Pat said, anything that's non-mission critical, we're not doing. The lobby's closed down right now. Folks can still, if you have a vehicle, it's in an impound, or if you have evidence you need to retrieve, we can make appointments to do that. All of that stuff's being handled by phone. A lot of our employees have been working from home. So we're still getting services from those individuals, but it's changed. And it was a bit of an adapting thing. Like I say, I'm probably the latest one in the command staff on the curve of we've set up our command staff and some other key folks with the ability to log in from home as if they were on their work computers, so they can get a lot of things done that way. We're handling things, I think, adequately. We're not able to provide the services we want to provide to everybody right now, but we're doing the best we can. We were really hoping that things would be loosened up first of this month. Those were extended by the state. So we'll just have to roll with those punches. I guess, like I say, one of the things that I'll make a note of, and Pat can probably chime in on this one, we're a bit of a loss because, the jails are not able to take people. There's a lot of people that were we're not able to incarcerate based upon warrants. So that's an impact, and it's not a secret. It gets out to the community that doesn't want to be locked up, that, you know, that this may affect them being locked up. So it's no secret. I'm not putting anything out on YouTube that isn't already available. So our officers having to deal with that. We're seeing circular things. 32 North Buena Vista is one that Pat's shaking his head. We had a police response there due to some criminal activity. We made some apprehensions based on that, and within 24 hours, that house was on fire. And I think, Pat, I think you'd probably call it fully involved. So those are things we're still continuing to deal with. And a lot of those prevent us taking the safety measures that we probably should be taking with our officers, because they're responding tactically, and sometimes there just isn't time to gear up appropriately. So I don't know if Pat wants to chime in on that circular issue.
Yeah, it's been kind of difficult. As many of you remember, we had 30 fires in the first 2 months of the year, and dealing with everything being shut down right now is really made it a little more difficult on our investigative team to figure these things out, working with the police department now to you know, find a cause and get the people that are responsible for these things has been difficult. One thing I did want to mention real quickly before I forget, that I did not mention earlier, and many of you are probably wondering, but we are keeping a very close line item of every purchase that we make regarding COVID. Yeah, so we will have, if the mayor and the administration needs anything from us to try to recover costs that we have spent from the federal government or the state, wherever the relief will come from, we have every receipt and every purchase that we made regarding COVID. So I think that's important moving forward. We've kept track from day one of our expenditures. So we're trying to be very organized to make sure we maximize our returns if possible. So, but there you go.
Jeff Pritt's our administrative sergeant. I know him and Craig Riley have been working on finding deals early on. You know, we normally keep well stocked in gloves, but you know, the masks we weren't real heavy on. Those two have been working on finding deals. I think they shop daily on Amazon. We use Amazon a lot for our quartermaster program, so we're able to get some good deals on that and some free shipping. Something to note is that Amazon made a priority for first responder agencies, so that's helped us out a little bit. They'll get us things a little quicker. Darren Logan with the Patrol Bureau, you know, it's easy to say that we can send, you know, some employees to work from home, but there are going to be those employees in any first responder agency that cannot work from home. They work from other people's homes. And we've had to take steps in patrol that we have 2 ends of the week. If you guys are familiar with our schedule, we have all of our employees scheduled to work on Wednesday. So there'd be an overlap. So much like the fire department, we're isolating, for lack of a better term, pods of our patrol people, and we're trying not to commingle them. So on a Wednesday, we'll either send one into the week to some sort of a training, or they'll do training from home. They'll work from home, basically available on call should an emergency happen with a response time that's mandated. And then the next week, the other end of the week will do that. So we've worked on a lot of those things. We have to cover any overtime. We've been lucky that we've been able to cover all patrol overtime with people from that end of the week. So our teams are commingling to a degree, but not ends of the week. So we think we've isolated them a lot better than we could have. Again, Eric McKee has been working. He's with the administrative side of it, so he's been working on things. We're hoping that grants come through, like Pat said, from the federal government or from the state. We'll take them from any source. So we've been diligent on keeping track of all of our expenditures on this. I think we've had less than fire, but you know, we're still spending money, and we're keeping track of that because we're hoping at some point we can turn that in and get some reimbursement. So we're trying to remain fiscally responsible. We know there's going to be a budgetary impact, so there's some things that we've done with some staffing to try to eliminate problems later this year and going into next year. We've been concerned, you know, we're dealing with citizens' dollars here with everything we do, and We're trying to make sure that we're spending money responsibly. I've had great support from the mayor and the safety director on that. The director and I probably talk daily. Again, we haven't had a in-person meeting forever, but daily we're having phone calls or we'll send texts, things like that. So we're trying to keep them apprised of where we're at. So if anybody has any questions, be happy to answer them. How do you keep from doing the focusing thing? Because I keep going blurry here.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the update and fiscal responsibility. Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? Mr. Blake.
Barry, Chief, I'm just curious with the schools not in session, and I'm just curious what types of activity are you seeing out in the neighborhoods? Is it teenagers doing reckless things? Is it domestics, or what type of patterns or trends are you seeing happening?
We're seeing, like all law enforcement right now, any of the states that are locked down, for lack of a better term. My son's in law enforcement in Georgia, and of course, Georgia released everything, a week or so ago. So they've had kind of a pressure relief that's come off. There's going to be pressure with the kids not in school. I know that the Newark City Schools has been working on trying to locate some kids and do some things like that, and programs. Of course, our brand new Boys and Girls Club is not able to operate the way they have been. So yeah, we're probably seeing an uptick in teen activity. I know that the brand new skate park has been a subject of contention. We get phone calls and emails daily, people reporting that people aren't social distancing. And we're trying to deal with that as best we can. We have to be understanding that there are, frustrations by all citizens, no matter what the age. Probably a small uptick in domestic type situations just through sheer frustration. So, nationally, I think they're seeing domestic violence rates are going up. So I'm sure we're going to be a microcosm of that.
I have a follow-up.
Yep.
When when is an officer supposed to, if they're going out on a call, I know the fire department's wearing masks all the time. Are they, just depending upon the situation, is when they're trying to use their best judgment? Is that when the officers, is that what the direction they're given at when to use masks and things?
Yes. Again, it's gonna go on every different call. There are times when wearing a mask would not be tactically sound, and it would be a negative impact. I got to say, cops are probably the most resistant to change people on the face of the earth. I'm looking in the mirror when I say that, but they're also some of the most adaptive people. So they figure out ways of getting the job done with what they're given. So they are doing a good job on that. I look at all the patrol officers who haven't missed a beat throughout this. Our detectives are actually working from home. They're doing investigations from home. A lot of the legwork they're able to do by phone and computer, things like that. So they're making their way through it, and PPEs is just one more piece to that puzzle.
And when's your retirement date?
82 days. July 25th.
All right, good deal. Well, again, Connor, thank you for everything that each of you are doing and each of the teams are doing as well, to protect your teams, but also the community as well, and for taking everything with great responsibility, the fiscal responsibility side as well. We certainly appreciate that. So thank you for being here this evening. And with that, we will conclude our safety committee. Capital improvements will be next.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. And that will wrap safety committee. Capital improvements will be next.
Thank you. Jeremy, you said you're sitting in for D on this one?
Yeah. She
Okay.
will not be here tonight.
Okay, I think we're ready. We've got the folks who need to be here. All right, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Capital Improvements Committee to order. Those present are myself, Lang, Fennell, Rath, Labutus, and Blake in for Hall. Up first, we have actually just one item on the agenda tonight. We've got an appropriation in the amount of $6,413.18 for maintenance of street projects. We have somebody to speak for this from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Rhodes here. I'll speak to
Mr.
it.
Rhodes.
About 2 years ago, we identified a need for pedestrian crossing at Cedar Street and Clarendon. And we removed some trees and we put the footers for this crossing in this year's concrete work. And now this is just the remaining funds that we need to add a flasher to that crossing. The funds will be coming out of capital improvement funds.
Thank you, Director Rhodes. Any comments from the committee?
Make a motion. Jeff Rath.
Motion by Rath,
Second.
second by Labutus. Any questions or comments from the committee? All right, all those in favor of sending this on to full council signify with a thumbs up. All opposed, same sign. All right, that passes 5-0, and the Capital Improvements Committee stands adjourned.
Thank you.
I believe you're welcome. Thank you. And then I believe Personnel is our last committee of the night.
Okay, it is 6:37. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Jonathan Lang, Jeremy Blake, John Lang, and Mark Labutus. Purpose of tonight's discussion is ordinance 20-16. It's an ordinance setting compensation and stating policy with respect to certain positions within the office of the Clerk of the Licking County Municipal Court of the City of Newark, and repealing all ordinances and resolutions in conflict. Marcia Phelps is here to speak to that. You may go ahead. And before I do that, if any other council member wants to speak to this or has any questions or comments, please just put your video and audio on and we will do our best. With that being said, Ms. Phelps, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, I want to thank the chiefs for their presentation and for everything that they're doing. And let them know that, I keep them in my prayers because this is a terrible time for them. And I know many of them. So I appreciated being here tonight just so I could hear that. I'm going to start with how this began. The chief deputy clerk has always been in previous resolution or ordinances when pay increases were brought forth. And for some reason, there was an oversight this time when you guys passed, I think it was 1934 or 1935, which included your deputy auditor and assistant law directors. She had the position of chief deputy clerk was always there. Even when you looked at the last one, 1744, and I think you might have gotten a copy. If you didn't, I can provide one. Was supposed to carry on through 2020. However, it was an oversight, wasn't included in checking. I was told that she wasn't asked to be included in that pay increase request. So as we reviewed that and how we moved forward with that position's salary, we also was looking at other positions in the clerk's office. Recently, I've lost 5 positions to other city departments, not other municipal court clerk's offices, but city departments or the courts. And it was because all of them paid more money. I can't say that was the only reason they left, but that was, obviously money is important to people, particularly as they get years of service added, and that just adds to their retirement. So I did a detailed comparison of city departments and the courts as well as other municipal court clerks in the surrounding area of Licking County of like size. Delaware and Fairfield would be two of the ones that have populations as well as similar caseloads. Because, you know, our caseload is rather high on a normal given year. And so therefore, I made sure that I reached out to those and found out where their ranges, their pay salaries were. And in doing so, I found that we were not only in comparison to city offices, but also to other municipal court clerks' offices, we were below. Therefore, I presented a package of all things together. Also in doing that, I included in here an increase for the court IT person. Now that comes with support from both judges. We met, we discussed it, and both judges are in agreement. We're bringing the court IT person up to the same range as the Newark PD IT person. Also with that, we are embarking upon either an upgrade or a conversion in our software package. And in doing that, we're going to need assistance to the IT person in having that conversion done. The last time the clerk's office looked at a conversion or an upgrade, they contract hired a consultant. I don't feel it's necessary for us to hire an outside consultant for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but to look either within or outside for somebody that has good IT experience that can be an assistant to this conversion to the current position of our IT. That's a lot said in a little bit of time. So if anybody has any questions, please, I'm open for that.
Okay, I'll open this up to any committee members that have any questions or comments for Ms. Phelps. Mr. Lang, you can go ahead, then Mr. Blake.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bob. Yeah, so thank you, Marcia. Appreciate the background. And you know, I'm not. I guess I'll just premise this by saying I'm not totally opposed to raises for folks and to get them on par. I guess I do want to ask: is this something that we need to address right now in the middle of you know, trying to figure out what our budget's going to look like? Obviously, the budget's been set for the year, and then you know, we're expecting potential downtick in gas tax money and some other funds that are coming in. So, you know, obviously it's a challenging time to add costs to the budget. Just want to get a little bit sense of, you know, why do we need to do this right now, and could this wait till next year?
Councilman, I appreciate that. And your points are valid. And trust me, I have also considered that myself. You know, as a former member of Newark City Council and a former county commissioner, budget issues are of grave concern always, no matter what is going on. And the pandemic has even made this far worse for all of us within the city coffers and funding. I would probably have waited, but it was advised that while I'm coming to council for the one position, which I have to do, she should not have been left out. That position, Chief Deputy Clerk, should not have been left out. And it was told that while you're doing that, you should do this. Now that started prior to the state of emergency or the pandemic. All of this started before. And as I understand, by the time this gets through council, because there's no emergency clause on it, other than the one caveat is for the chief deputy clerk's position would be retroactive to the beginning of the year, if you notice that. But the others would be in July, I believe, by the time it gets through all council, you know, this committee and then the 2 readings on council. So it would be almost, you know, after mid-year. I don't want to have to wait. I don't think that I'm going to lose anybody else because the courts are now fully staffed, unless somebody leaves, which I don't think they will. And I haven't seen any openings within any of the other city departments. Newark PD was one place where I lost a person. Tax department, I lost several people there. I don't think there's any more openings coming up, but I don't want to risk losing any more staff, because having 5 new people in the clerk's office is pretty detrimental to the continuity in office and service. Training people is not quick in this office. And now because we're like everybody else, even though we've been open, we have not closed. And I have staff coming in half 1 week and half the other week, simply because I got to keep a separation of these people in the event they would become exposed. I have to protect the service that has to be delivered. So the training was going to be a little slower with those 5 new people. Now, to your point of your question, I hope I've kind of addressed some parts of that, but you know, it certainly is a decision that council makes. I don't come lightly with this, and I'm sorry that it came so late in the year after something happened. I wish it could have been earlier in the year. But I will say that Doug Sasson was more than willing to assist me with writing the legislation. Lori Resta, communications was a little difficult for a while there, back and forth, trying to figure out, the whole how I was going to do this with adding Cliff to a legislation that's more for the clerk's office, not for the court. And then also with just with where I was going. There was a criteria that I had to follow what's currently in the policy and that range scale. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but me looking at that and using that, because that's what I was told I needed to do, all of it was a little bit more time consuming and difficult than I would have anticipated or wanted. There you go.
Okay, Jeremy, you had next question, comment?
Marcia, you, in your comments to Jonathan Lang, you answered my questions, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness and preparing this tonight and bringing it forward to make sure that services are given to the citizens of our office. So thank you for answering Jonathan's question and return answering mine as well. So thank you.
Okay. I will tell you, as members of council and the appropriating authorities for the city of Newark funding, one of the things that I'm having staff do is make phone calls to defendants, trying to get payments brought in, because, like everything else, we're down on that. But while their time permits, and, of course, we are setting out cases because we're not having regular traffic hearings and those things, only crimes of violence are we having hearings on, but, they are working on the phones. And if somebody wants to pay by credit card, we're trying to at least try to keep some flow coming in. I don't know it. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with the budget and the revenue that comes in. Obviously, that's part of your jobs. But what I don't want to have to see is that down, us have a tremendous drop just because we wasn't doing what we should do to try to keep collecting. That was added, sorry.
Marcia, yeah, and just a follow-up question. And I do understand the concern due to the instability in the budget, with what might happen. I mean, could this be tabled and wait until next year? Could there be better timing on it?
Not when it comes to the chief deputy clerk's position, for sure. For the remainder of things, I would assume that would be discouraging for those that's left behind, watching some of their coworkers move on to a better pay. But I don't think I'm going to have people dropping off and quitting. I just think they would certainly appreciate the recognition of what they're doing. We're not at the safety forces, but people still come in our office. And there's a nervousness about everybody that's exposed, obviously, to people. They can't sit at their quiet homes. They have to come to work. And I know that they would appreciate the consideration. They would also respect, because that's what I would share with them, the position of Newark City Council. I don't know how you separate out the chief deputy clerk's position, though, because she should not have to wait just because there was an oversight and she wasn't included. How you do that.
Thank you. And just for clarification too, the folks in this, not the chief deputy clerk, I'm just looking at my scale here. These folks did receive a raise last year, correct? For the following, 3 or 4 years?
They were included with, everything that the city does for non-uniform, yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have any further questions or comments? Go ahead, Mr. Lang.
Yeah, if I could follow up. So, so just to be clear, so they would have received the non-union raises that were given out earlier this year. Was that, I forget what percentage would that have been?
I'm sorry, no.
That's fine. More importantly, though, I don't think we discussed. So, and maybe you could, because I do see how you're looking at these as kind of two different issues between the deputy clerk and everybody else. What's the cost to the, and I guess I should take a step back. I believe this comes out of the general fund.
That is correct.
Right? Okay, so what's the impact to the general fund for the deputy clerk raise that you're looking for, the total impact, and then what's the total impact for everybody else?
I did not calculate that. I don't. I did earlier, but I don't have that information with me. I apologize.
Okay.
The total.
I see that it looks like the deputy clerk would be. I see that'd just be a few thousand. I can see the actual numbers there, but I don't have all the rest of the numbers there to figure that out.
Oh, and keep in mind too, we didn't change the table of organization and the number of positions. So currently, I do have 3 open positions, of which I do not intend to fill. One is left over from a person leaving, and the other 2 were open. I do not intend to fill those, but I didn't want to take them off the table or the, whatever you call this. I call it a table of organization. I didn't want to take them off because come next year, you know, we may have to put them back on. And it's just a lot easier to leave them on than to try to add them later. And that was the, you know, that also was advice given to me to not change that. But I'm here to tell you, I understand, but, budget. I will not be filling those positions, even though they're there on that table. So, for you to ask me what the total cost impact would be for the remainder of this year to pass, is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have those figures in front of me. And I can't remember. I mean, I had a chart, I had a spreadsheet with it, but unfortunately I didn't bring it with me, but I can certainly mail it out to you guys tomorrow. That's a little late, but.
Sure.
Jeremy, go ahead.
I just want to say that I think that, at some point, council is going to need to get a briefing or update from our income tax collections and to get an idea of what exactly is happening with our budget and what's happening with our revenue. None of us here tonight know that picture, but considering all the, the recommendation tonight, I would suggest we move it on to council, and I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Blake. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, did you second that, Sean? Okay. Okay, so there's a motion by Blake, a second by Fennell. Is there any further questions, comments? Anyone have? Mr. Lang? And then actually, go ahead, John, then Mr. Marmee.
Yeah, I guess just a quick thought on this. Since we don't have the information to really understand what the impact, I would move to table this until we can get those numbers and get, we spent a lot of time pouring over the raises that we looked at for other positions. And I'm not sure I quite have enough information to really make a decision on this yet. I might also suggest that we consider this as 2 separate matters, since we've got one that we're trying to make retro back to January 1st. And I understand there's probably a little more urgency with that than there is with the rest of the positions. So I'm open to options there, but I might suggest we amend and separate and at least table the ones that we don't have the numbers in front of us for.
Okay. Is there a second to Mr. Lang's tabling?
I would second Mr. Lang's tabling.
Okay. Okay, so there is a motion to table this to an unspecified date by Mr. Lang, a second by Labutus. So we will need to vote on this table. It's not debatable. So All those in favor,
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
go ahead, Mr. Sassen.
I'm just trying to keep my notes straight. I want to make sure my hearing of Mr. Lang is correct. Are we looking to table the entire ordinance, or are you looking to table a portion of the ordinance?
I think we should table the ordinance. I mean, I guess procedurally, if we can move forward with the deputy clerk position and vote on taking that to full council, I don't have an issue with moving that along and letting full council weigh in. But I would like to at least table if we can do that, just table the raises for everybody else.
As a procedural matter, if we want to do that, we need a motion to separate the question so that we can separate the chief deputy clerk from the other positions. Then we could vote on one and we could table the other. So if we do that separately, we should have the motion to separate first.
Okay, that's fine. I'll make a motion to separate the questions.
Okay, there is a motion to separate the question of chief deputy compared to the other positions. Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right, so a second by Labutus. Okay. Okay, so all of those in favor of separating these two can signify by saying aye and a thumbs up.
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. And Sean, I'm sorry, what was your vote on that?
Opposed.
Okay. So the motion passes 3-2.
And then I'd like to make a motion to table the portion for all the non deputy clerk positions until we've got more information.
Okay. There's a motion to table that until more information is presented. Is there a second on that?
I think Mark may have frozen again.
Mark, are you there? Okay, I want to make sure Mark can vote one way or the other on this. Okay. 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 All right. So a motion by Lang, a second by Labutus to table these till further information is presented. All those in favor of that motion can signify by saying aye with a thumbs up. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, that motion passes 3-2. Okay. So with that being said, I believe that will conclude this legislation.
Mr. Chairman, you still have pending before you the issue with the chief deputy. To move that onto full council, you'll need to move on. You'll need to vote on that.
I'm sorry, that's correct. Okay. Is there a motion?
I think Doug is also, he's been waving his hand for a while, Mr. Marmon.
Okay, Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I know that there's a motion on the table and it was already, now part of it has been tabled and now you're voting on the separation. I guess one question I have is, you keep saying that you were given advice, Marcia, from people that first of all, you had to bring it all together, which clearly is not a correct statement. So who's given you this advice that advising you to do these things? And, as far as making sure that they all come forward now, first and foremost. And then I've got a follow-up to that too.
Marcia,
I worked closely with Lori Resta to get the grid, as she calls it, put together. And then once we finalized that grid, which was somewhat cumbersome, then, sending that on to Doug, which was a smooth sail as far as him putting together the resolution or the ordinance that was presented tonight. But I think the hang up was between who is supposed to help me with that. As an elected official, I knew what I wanted. It was just who was supposed to help me. And it was between Lori and HR because there was some job descriptions that had to be added. They didn't, required that to happen. I had to rewrite the job description for Cliff because they said they never had anything. I mean, they have a job description, but they said they didn't have anything to be accompanying in this legislation, to be attached to the legislation. It was just a trying time, as best one can say.
Okay.
To be easier, I just don't, if I ever did that to somebody on Newark City Council, or, as a Newark City Council member, or a part of the administration, I would be unhappy with myself because I didn't think it was that difficult. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. One thing that I would ask is I would want a full, some copies of you said you did an analysis with other cities. We've had that done with various positions and individuals who have done that. But we need more than just salary. We also need to know all the full benefit packages and things, because those also are usually different. The city of Newark benefits are usually richer when we're comparing to especially Fairfield County and things like that. So those also have always been taken into consideration. So I would want a copy of what you found out there too, please.
I will get you what I can, but I'm at the level of them disclosing it to me. It's been difficult at best to get answers. Earlier this year, when I was starting this whole process, and now even worse because everybody's in a mode of how do we manage court, and instead of let me answer that question for Marcia Phelps over there. But I'll do the best I can, Doug. Comparing salaries would be the easiest, but trying to go with the benefits too is going to probably be more difficult. I'm just sharing with you up front, but I'll do what I can.
Right. And it's difficult to support when we've denied other positions and we've seen, higher salaries in other municipalities, and we've denied those as recently as, within the last few months, we've done that. So, pardon?
Which ones were those?
Well, the clerk of council, we did that.
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and call for a vote on passing the chief deputy clerk position onto a full council. All those in favor of moving this on can signify by saying aye with a thumbs up. Okay, Jeremy and Sean. Okay, all right, and all those opposed. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, all right. With that being said, we will conclude this personnel committee meeting to order. We will look forward to further information regarding the other positions. And with that being said, City Council is next. Thank you.
And everyone, it'll be give us 5 minutes to get switched to that other feed. Everybody on YouTube, we will be back for full City Council in about 5 minutes.